I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.
You know, once upon a time, I lived in Canada, so it doesn't necessarily bring me great joy to bring up this topic and keep going over it, but the future is coming, whether we want to ignore it or not. As a man, unfortunately, I have no choice but to deal in reality. I live in a world that I must mold around myself, and I must base my decisions off of what I can see coming. Canada is a beautiful country, but its people gave up their right to sovereignty long ago. Right now, there are Chinese police stations in Canada monitoring Chinese people who live in Canada, and they have authority to arrest them, investigate them, and they report back to the CCP. That means there's another government circumventing the Canadian government right now. If the Canadians don't care about their sovereignty, then why should we? We're taking Greenland so that the Chinese and the Russians don't take it. We're going to have to take Canada for the exact same reasons. As of right now, the existence of Canada has been solely at the charity of the United States. Their GDP, their government has been subsidized to the tune of about $200 billion a year. USAID funds have turned off where we are influencing other countries. We are no longer doing charity handouts. The phrase of the day is now America first. Unfortunately, that means the 30 million or so Canadians are going to have to either jump on board with us or fail to exist. They roughly have about 90 days. Annexation or salvation are your only two choices. Right now, I have friends of mine that work in the trucking industry that live in Canada. And we've been working together for, over 10 years now. We coordinate a lot of dog rescue together, and we transport animals. But they only transport animals when they're going back and forth because they have different shipments. The borders are pretty much closed because of the tariffs. And the tariffs are not changing. The tariffs are not moving. Right now, the trucks are sitting and they're piling up. There's no work. People are already starting to feel the effects of the tariffs, and that the American government is not joking around. The premier of Alberta should have never made those threats, which were basically almost a declaration of war, to threaten to cut off American power, to threaten to cut off your power that Americans were purchasing from Canada to certain regions of the country, knowing that there are people on life support and seniors. Even making that threat means that the Canadians as a whole, and their politicians that represent them, underestimated their dependence on the United States, and they saw themselves, unfortunately, as equals. They are not. They have nor the weaponry, the finances, or the manpower to ever consider themselves as equals to us. We just failed to remind them of their place. And I don't mean to say that to be condescending, but I have to speak to people like people. As an adult, you will understand what I'm saying. Everything is not going to be even. We are not equally killed. They have about 90 days before most of these industries start to go under in Canada. Without the money that we inject into their economy, the country goes bankrupt and fails to exist. There is no more sovereignty. The premier was told by Trump to his face what we do not need, and he's feeling it. And he's literally grasping for air in this video. Let me play it.
You really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us.
We have a deficit with Canada They have a surplus with us. That's not American first. That's not America first. And that's why that's going to change.
Subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically.
He said Canada will have to learn to be a place that can take care of itself economically. This is the leader of the United States speaking directly in the fucking face of the leader of Canada. He's telling him directly, we don't need you. We don't need your fucking maple syrup. We don't need your fucking cars. We don't need your fucking lumber. We have our own. America first. I'm MAGA. In the MAGA movement, we really do not necessarily have a problem with the Canadians. Unfortunately, the Canadian population is ran by a bunch of liberals. If Canada does become a state, it will have to be, its statehood would have to unfortunately be that similar of Puerto Rico. You're a part of the country, but you do not have the right to vote in elections. We cannot give 30 million bitter, weak, gay Canadians who have some kind of bias against the United States. Because remember, just like spoiled children, anyone that you help eventually will grow to resent you. I've had people in my life personally that I've had to help them get on their feet. And 6 months later, a year later, they hate my guts because they hate the fact that they needed me to help them get on their feet. So they can't come out with that villainous arc story about how they had to get it out the mud and they had to build themselves up. No, you had a friend like me that helped you out. You had a cousin, you had a brother like me that had your back. And those people that needed you eventually grow to resent you. And that's just how it goes, unfortunately. And that's why we can't do that.
I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, I mean, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. What are you going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not.
Basically, what Trump is saying is that he told Trudeau to his face, he asked Trudeau, if we put a 25% tariff on your cars, just on cars, what would that mean for Canada? Justin Trudeau said that would mean the end of Canada. So basically, your country only exists if it's able to rip off my country. Unfortunately, your country will not exist, and you're going to have to figure out how to keep yourselves afloat. However, we will extend the lifeline. You can become a state, but you won't have the right to vote in our national elections, and you will be bound by our Constitution. That would help the Canadians, and it will save them. But I'll be honest with you, beggars can't be choosers. And politicians in Canada have failed to articulate to their people where they really are. It's not being told on the news. I talked to two ladies that I deal with in Canada. We talk all the time. We were going over politics today. Most people have no idea that their country is insolvent and likely cannot serve and will not be able to survive. They don't have any other trade partners that want anything from them. Not to the tune of enough to sustain a country of that many people. There's no country that basically everything that we were buying from them was charity work. Trump said it best. We can do it ourselves. We have our own lumber. We have a beautiful lumber industry. We have an amazing American maple syrup industry. And now we're reopening factories to build our own cars here again. Pennsylvania, Michigan, American states, America first. And by the look of the new, he's not a premier. He's the, I forgot what the fucking term for the Canadian president is. Not the chancellor. It's prime minister. And he doesn't know what to do because he had a lot of tough talk and he said Canada's not for sale. And, Trump started giggling like, yeah, you can say that now, but Canada's going to be for free pretty soon. And your constituents, when they realize they lost everything and they have nothing, they're going to run you out of office, and we are going to have to find suitable replacements for all of you. So that's why Trump's not necessarily even having to look at him or deal with him. These people are only temporary. Once we replace their government, these people won't be in government anymore because they're under an outdated monarchical system where there's like a monarch. They're still under the crown. They're actually still under the crown. And the way they do things and the way their form of government it's not going to work for the American government. We live in the future. Their style of government is very old and outdated. So let's look at what the truckers are actually saying, shall we? Because the truckers are who, bring home the bacon, and they're the ones who actually matter the most. Canadian Trucking Alliance says that tariffs will devastate Canada's trucking industry. Now, this is an article from March, so it's not very long ago. Trump announced on Thursday, March 6th, that he granted temporary tariffs exemptions through April 2nd. So that's already come and gone. We're already in May. But what I wanted to read this is that Canada will not let this unjustified decision go unanswered. That was from Trudeau. Should American tariffs come into effect tonight, Canada will effectively respond with 25%. You can't respond to us. We're your biggest trading partner. You are not ours. We don't necessarily need you. We protect you. You don't pay your fair share to NATO, and we can't let Canada fall. So by default, we protect them, and they pay some of the lowest annual costs out of all NATO countries because of us. How is that fair? If the word of the day is equality, then how is it fair that the Canadians are not paying their fair share for us and we're defending them? They really owe us everything. Not saying that they have enemies, but the Chinese have already been encroaching and looking to take it over, and no one's saying anything about it. So don't say anything when the Americans decide to take Canada before the Chinese. The trucks are just lined up the border, and they're not able to unload any of their products. No money is coming in. They only have another 60 to 90 days of this before they are going to be begging to be a state and trying to work it out. But all the tough talk is not going to be there, and their current political leaders will have to be a thing of the past. So let's see here. I actually was just looking at this. So this is a Canadian 51st state blog. And they put how many people really want Canada to become the 51st state and why. People are saying, and these are the comments that I've been reading. Let's see here. Okay, they're loading again. We just had the comments here. Well, let me go back to Facebook, because this is actually important. Here we go. Canadian 51st state. Okay. The U.S. will be thriving and Canada is falling apart. What will happen in the end? People are now barely starting to realize that they won't have a country anymore. But I want to go down to what we were talking about being the 51st state. Look at people are already understanding. Make Canada great again. Trump for prime minister. He will be your prime minister. Trump will be your president pretty soon. You guys won't have the Canadians do not have another year or 2 years or to bolster up trade. They don't have any of that. They don't have time for that. That's over. So let's see here. I want to go. Where's the 51st state post? Canadians are losing their minds over sovereignty right now, ranting about loyalty to the king like it's in the 1700s. But let's be real. Who exactly are they pledging loyalty to? A tired, washed up old coward who doesn't have the balls to open his mouth, King Charles, the empty suit draped in velvet, hasn't said a single fucking word while Canada faces real threats to its future. Not a statement, not a gesture, not even a hollow PR appearance. He doesn't give a shit about Canada. We're just a footnote to him, an old colonial afterthought he couldn't point to on a map without an aide whispering directions in his ear. He is not a leader. He's not a symbol of anything but rot, decay, and cowardice. He hides behind a gold-trimmed wall, stuffing his bloated face with luxury while Canadians are out here fighting over the scraps of sovereignty he pretends to represent. He's a parasite, a leech, fattened by centuries of stolen wealth and blind loyalty from idiots who still think bowing to a crown means nothing. Obviously, there are Canadians who don't necessarily agree with being under the monarch and under the rule of a king on the other side of the ocean, which they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Also, you're right. I haven't heard King Charles come out and say anything about Canada losing its sovereignty or not being or becoming or not being able to afford to stay open and having to become an American state just to survive. I haven't heard him say anything about it. Nothing. U.S. woman says Canadian election was rigged and Mark Carney was installed. Asks Canada to join the United States. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you can ask, but it's you're not really going to have a choice pretty soon. It's not like you have the option to, to be or not to be, or to join or not to join. You're going to have to survive. There is no other answer. Money doesn't grow on trees. Things have to make sense. Things have to be afforded. These industries, which are literally what props up the Canadian economy, they're all going to buckle within 90 days. So that means you guys didn't really have any reserves. You guys are really dependent upon that money. But when you're depending upon money from another country, how dare you? How dare you spite this other country and raise your nose and talk down to the American president as if you can survive without us? That was a huge miscalculation by the premier of Alberta. What was his name? Doug Ford? What the fuck was that idiot thinking? Now Americans don't feel sorry for you at all. At all. So, and it's not like we're going to just take your country. You're going to have to give it to us because we don't need it. Canada is in trouble. But the only way to get out of trouble is beg the United States for help. Beg us for help. And I'll be honest with you, the reason why Trump said Canada has to join the United States is because Canada doesn't necessarily, it's not really a heavy hitter. I went to the AI and I said, how much of the Canadian economy depends on trucking with the US? Approximately 70% of Canadian US trade by value is transported by truck. In 2022, trucks carried 55% of freight between Canada and the United States. There's whole industries built upon going back and forth over that invisible border, that invisible line separating countries. What would it be like for you, right? If that imaginary line disappeared and we were all the United States? What benefits has that imaginary line done for you? Everyone in your country was forced into doing something back in 2021. And now everybody who complied, many people magically are now passing away from cancers and all kinds of strange diseases. What did that barrier didn't help you? See, in the United States, we had more options and choices, but in Canada, they were already starting to build the camps to put you guys in because you don't have weapons and you have no constitution guaranteeing you a freedom of speech to talk about it or a Second Amendment to protect your First Amendment if somebody tries to take it away from you. You guys don't understand the benefits and the beauties of being an American because you listen to Black Americans. But if Black Americans hate their country so bad and they have so much disdain, why wouldn't they have moved to Canada or moved back to Africa? It's because this is a great country. It's a beautiful country. But there are other people that they make money off of sympathy and they garner hatred towards the place that feeds them. Again, spoiled child syndrome. You resent the people that have to help you. and because you resent being in a position where you needed them. I asked the chat GBT, if Canada became an American state, which current state's economy would be similar to that of Canada? Canada would not even be in the top 5. Its economy would be closer to Pennsylvania or Illinois. That's the type of, it wouldn't be a California. It's not a New York. It's not a Texas. It's not a heavy hitter. It's closer to, they were saying on a good day, Illinois, but maybe more like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt has been very inactive and the economy has been in shambles. So that's what the Canadian economy would actually amount to. So we're not taking Canada just for the money. We're taking Canada to save the people. But guess what? You don't have to come to us and you guys can just buckle and then we just come pick Canada for pennies on the dollar. The same thing that the Chinese are going to do, except we're closer. So we're not going to let the Chinese do it. It wouldn't make any sense to do that. You know, I mean, they're saying if you fully integrate the Canadian economy and get it up and running, it would be similar to that maybe of Texas. But as of right now, it's more like a Pennsylvania or Illinois. A lot of the benefits would be for the Canadians. It wouldn't necessarily be, that's why Trump's kind of wiping his hands with it and just saying, screw it. You know, you guys don't want our assistance, then okay. So here goes somebody. Okay, so again, Trump always said Canada, the 51st state. He has never said just Alberta. There are movements for the 51st state across the country. Alberta cannot hog it all to themselves. That's hilarious. But think about it. Alberta is where the capital is located. Edmonton, Alberta. You got Calgary, beautiful places. I've been there. They would be great additions to Canada, but again, because they have such a liberal, Democrat-leaning, left-wing, psychopath base, they would vote against our Constitution. They would vote against freedom, and they would vote in favor of joining the Chinese because they want to be subjugated. As of now, they're subjugated by the crown, who doesn't give two pieces of dog shit about them. Some people love their enslavement. Unfortunately, in America, we're rebellious, so we don't necessarily take, we don't really take subjugation very well. You can say what you want to say, but we do have freedom here. So Trump was literally telling people directly to their face.
Meeting with the new and very talented Prime Minister of Canada. It's a very big announcement to make. It's not about trade, it's about something else, but it's going to be a truly earth-shattering and positive development for this country and for the people of this country. And that'll take place sometime within the next few days. I said before in our meeting with the new and very talented Prime Minister of Canada that we have some very big announcement to make. It's not about trade, it's about something else, but it's going to be a truly earth-shattering and positive development for this country and for the people of this country. And that'll take place sometime within the next few days.
Why is he obsessed with Canada? Please let Canada live in peace. Canada's not living in peace. Canada's being overrun by immigrants from Somalia, from the Sudan, from China, they're literally just carving up Canada and destroying it. Its natives are being murdered and robbed by immigrants from other parts of the world. You think it was bad over here in the US? Imagine if you live in a liberal country, not a liberal state. Imagine if California was an entire country. Everything overpriced, homelessness, destroyed economy, idiotic identitarian leadership. You're fucked. Yeah, you're done. So we're literally, so Trump's already saying that there's going to be an announcement. The prime minister doesn't have a choice but to announce that they are going to have to be under the United States. We're going to have to erase that border so that you guys can continue doing trade. But if not, then we're going to just have to watch you guys sink and beg us to help you. Once you start losing your jobs, and once your economy goes upside down, and once your housing market collapses one day and buckles and it finally hits the news, you can blame America all you want, but you're going to have to suck up to America just to survive. these are big boy times. These are not kid times. These are not times where you can play around and play games and talk a bunch of shit. You're going to have to back it up now. So hopefully the Canadians actually can get it together and keep it together. Right now, they can't. They can't. So anyways, like and subscribe, share the video. The border is being, everyone's just sitting on the border. They're losing so much money, so many drivers and transporters. And, this is what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. You're going to have to get smacked by that same hand so that you know your place. Share the video. Inform your friends that the Canadians will have to join us. They just won't be able to vote. But think about it. They really can't vote now because what do they vote for? They vote in favor of giving up their rights anyway. They want to be subjugated, so they can be subjugated by us. Why should the British and the Chinese have all the fun? Right-wing RICO, Safe and Effective Podcast. Thank you, and I'll see you again shortly with another topic.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.